You see, most people wake up every morning remembering the same problems, thinking the same thoughts, and feeling the same emotions, anchored to the past. And as they do, they keep firing and wiring the same neural circuits, living in survival mode, trapped in the chemistry of stress. More than just a feel-good emotion. It's a signal to the universe that you're no longer defined by your past. It's the neurochemical key to creating elevated emotions that tell your brain, I'm ready for something greater. When you feel gratitude, not just think it, but truly feel it in your heart, you begin to change your brain's wiring. And the moment that happens, you're no longer a prisoner of your past. You're a creator of your future. So today, let's explore how practicing gratitude, even for just a few seconds, can rewire your mind, recondition your body, and ultimately transform your life. Most people live their lives in a constant state of survival, thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, and repeating the same behaviors day after day. This routine keeps the brain trapped in the past, locked into patterns of fear, anxiety, and stress. The body, unable to distinguish between real danger and imagined threats, stays in a heightened state of alert, continuously releasing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. This is the survival state. But when we begin to practice gratitude, we interrupt that cycle. Gratitude isn't a mental exercise, it's an emotional experience. It's the act of acknowledging the present moment, appreciating it deeply, and feeling elevated by it. When you truly feel grateful, even for just a few seconds, your body begins to move out of survival and into creation. This emotional shift has a direct and immediate impact on the brain. Gratitude activates the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for decision-making, focus, and conscious thought. It also reduces activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain that's responsible for fear and emotional reactivity. In that moment of genuine gratitude, your brain receives a clear message. The environment is safe. You're no longer fighting for survival, you're open to new possibilities. And when you're no longer living in the emotions of the past, you become more present, more aware, and more connected to a future you're intentionally creating. Gratitude becomes the signal that tells your brain and body a new reality is available. Instead of reacting to life, you begin to create it. This transition from survival to creation doesn't require months or years. It can begin in seconds. The moment you choose to feel something greater than your circumstances. Gratitude is the bridge between who you've been and who you're becoming. Every time you experience a thought or emotion, your brain fires a specific set of neurons. Over time, repeated thoughts and feelings form hardwired neural pathways that shape how you perceive and respond to the world. When you live in stress, fear, or resentment, those patterns strengthen and your brain becomes wired for survival. But when you introduce elevated emotions, especially gratitude, you begin to create new neural connections that support a different version of yourself. Gratitude is one of the most powerful, elevated emotions because it combines both the heart and the mind in coherence. When you truly feel grateful, you're not just thinking positively, you're emotionally signaling that something meaningful has already occurred. In the brain, this feeling starts to override the old habitual circuits of lack, worry, and fear. Instead, it begins to build and reinforce new patterns of abundance, trust, and openness. The brain doesn't know the difference between what's happening in your outer world and what you're vividly imagining on the inside. So when you feel gratitude for a future that hasn't yet occurred, you begin to install the neural architecture as if that future is already real. This is how new identities are created, not just by changing what you think, but by repeatedly feeling the emotions of your desired future. Over time, those new emotional experiences begin to outcompete the old ones. The neural networks that supported your past identity start to weaken from lack of use, while the circuits of your new self grow stronger. Each time you feel gratitude, you reinforce those new connections, making it easier to return to that elevated state. With repetition and intention, gratitude reshapes the very structure of your brain, wiring you to expect, create, and live in alignment with a greater version of yourself. When you feel genuine gratitude, you send a powerful signal to your body that the future you desire is already unfolding. Unlike hope or wishing, gratitude is the emotional signature of fulfillment. It implies that what you want has already happened. This emotional state is not passive. It's deeply active, sending real-time signals through your nervous system that trigger physiological and neurological responses aligned with a new reality. The body begins to believe that the event has already taken place, and this belief starts to influence your biology in measurable ways. Neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin are released, creating feelings of joy, connection, and inner peace. Your heart rhythm becomes more coherent, which in turn creates greater synchronization between the heart and brain. This coherence sends a harmonious message throughout the body, regulating hormones, boosting immune function, and calming the autonomic nervous system. In this state, you are no longer operating from the stress chemistry of the past. You are living as if the future is happening now, and your body begins to respond accordingly. This is the essence of the placebo effect. Your thoughts and emotions begin to change your biology without anything outside of you changing first. Practicing gratitude in this way makes you energetically aligned with the outcomes you desire. The body, conditioned by repetition and emotion, starts to trust this new reality. It no longer waits for the future to bring about a feeling of worthiness or abundance. It feels those things now. And as a result, you begin to attract experiences that match the frequency of that emotion. Gratitude becomes more than just a positive practice. It becomes a statement to the universe that you are no longer defined by your past, but are already living in the elevated state of your desired future. When you experience gratitude deeply, it doesn't just affect your mind. It creates immediate physiological changes in your body that support balance, healing, and coherence. One of the most profound shifts occurs in the autonomic nervous system, where gratitude helps deactivate the fight or flight response and activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs rest, repair, and regeneration. In this state, your heart rate slows, your breathing becomes more rhythmic, and your body enters a state of coherence. Heart-brain coherence is a scientifically measurable state where the rhythms of the heart and the brain begin to synchronize, creating optimal conditions for health, mental clarity, and emotional regulation. When the heart and brain are in sync, communication between them becomes more efficient and harmonious. The heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart, and during coherent states triggered by gratitude, those messages are of safety, balance, and alignment. This harmony enhances cognitive function, improves decision making, and increases your ability to stay centered during stress. Gratitude acts like a tuning fork, recalibrating your internal state to match higher frequencies of emotion. And this shift directly influences your endocrine system, reducing cortisol levels and increasing levels of oxytocin, the hormone associated with love, bonding, and trust. These biochemical changes don't just feel good, they prepare your body for healing and transformation. By regularly invoking gratitude, you're literally training your nervous system to favor calm over chaos and regulation over reactivity. Over time, this internal environment becomes your new baseline. You stop living from survival, and instead, your biology begins to reflect a state of growth, balance, and connection. Practicing gratitude isn't just about being positive. It's a deeply strategic and powerful act that conditions your heart and brain to operate in harmony, unlocking higher levels of consciousness and well-being. Gratitude, when practiced consistently, becomes more than a fleeting feeling. It becomes a transformative habit that reshapes the very wiring of your brain and the chemistry of your body. Every time you feel genuine gratitude, you reinforce a neural circuit associated with elevated emotional states. Repetition is key. The more often you fire those circuits, the stronger they become, and over time, your brain starts to default to those pathways instead of the old ones rooted in fear, stress, or lack. With each intentional moment of gratitude, you prune away the neurological connections that support your past self and reinforce those that embody your future self. Begins to memorize this new emotional state. It learns to live in the chemistry of gratitude, and eventually it begins to crave it. Just as the body can become addicted to the hormones of stress, it can also become conditioned to the hormones of joy, trust, and appreciation. In this way, your emotional baseline starts to shift. You no longer need external events to feel good. You generate those feelings from within. This is the foundation of self-regulation and personal mastery. At a biological level, gratitude helps regulate the genes involved in stress responses and inflammation, promoting overall health and resilience. The brain's plasticity ensures that these changes aren't just temporary, they become long-lasting with continued practice. New synaptic connections form, supporting sustained emotional stability, increased focus, and a more optimistic outlook. What begins as a simple emotional practice becomes a neural architecture that supports the life you're intentionally creating. Gratitude, practiced with consistency and sincerity, literally changes the brain's structure, conditions the body to live in alignment with elevated emotions, and transforms your entire internal environment to match the life you envision living.